I never intended to lose everything, my wife, my life, even my soul. But amidst the debris of my past, I found Zosha bound by quiet suffering, her innocence concealing a pain similar to mine. We danced with danger, aware it could destroy us. When I initially brought her aboard my dilapidated boat, I knew I was inviting disorder into my life. Each furtive glance, each illicit touch, drew us closer to the precipice. Then arrived the night from which we couldn't retreat. Now, as I gaze into the void, I ponder, did I rescue her, or have I condemned us both? I peered into the vacant darkness for nearly a minute before I added rum to it. At least this time, I waited 5 minutes. Previously, I might have filled my coffee maker with rum instead of water had it functioned that way. In truth, I once attempted it. The rum created a large, sticky mess in the coffee maker, and much of the alcohol evaporated, necessitating additional rum. One learns from their mistakes. I am known as Greece. In the islands, people are known by names other than their birth names. Mine is Grease, an abbreviation for Grease Monkey. I repair engines on boats as my occupation, or perhaps it's because my shirts and shorts are perpetually soiled that I bear this nickname. Their cleanliness leaves much to be desired. Truth be told, I've neglected personal hygiene for some years now, which might explain the moniker. There was a time when appearance mattered greatly to me. Nonetheless, my real name is Thomas Knight. My wife, Lil, and I acquired it through hard work, not by chance. She was my high school sweetheart, Lily, who supported me through college and law school with tireless effort, ensuring we had sustenance while I studied. We believed those long hours would eventually lead to financial security and the start of our family. However, our plans shifted. At first, Lil seemed merely exhausted. Then she struggled with maintaining her food intake. My situation didn't improve. It was ovarian cancer that claimed her life in a short span. For some time, I felt detached. Later, grief overwhelmed me. I felt adrift and hollow. My days transformed into a monotonous routine. Work, return home, and dwell among memories, lost in the confines of my four walls. Alcohol consumption increased, but I deluded myself that I could quit any time. However, the truth was, I didn't truly wish to. Consequently, I lost my job, my house, my car, most of my savings, and even encountered legal issues. Forced to leave Florida, I embarked on a different journey. Having grown up around boats in Florida and worked on fishing vessels during my high school and college years, I was skilled at repairs. A dream bloomed, fixing the boat, establishing a charter business, perhaps even expanding to multiple vessels. Regrettably, I should have moderated my drinking habits. For half a decade, my vessel deteriorated, and I merely maintained engines to sustain my drinking habit. Over a year and a half, I hadn't ventured beyond my confined space. My hair grew long and unkempt, sporting a shaggy beard with many gray strands tied back in a ponytail. Indeed, I am Greece. In these islands, people commonly use names other than their birth names. Among them are Pogo, proprietor of the shack, a beach bar and grill catering to ex-military personnel. Adorning the walls is a special forces emblem and an assortment of aged news articles. Pogo displays service flags from various military branches on the ceiling. The shack serves as my regular haunt due to my ability to repair their watercraft, despite not quite fitting in. It offers decent food, music that's not excessively loud, and intriguing company. A familiar face at the shack is Loud Howard. He stands short yet boasts a robust character, making him easily identifiable from afar. Frank Rodema frequently visits this spot to avoid tourists, as he holds the position of local police chief and is often referred to as Chief. Monster and X are other regulars here. The former got his name due to scars on one side of his face, making him appear somewhat menacing, with his eye on that side being mostly white and cloudy. While Monster is friendly, there's an unsettling aura about him. His partner is X, but their relationship feels more like a professional arrangement than love. X always seems to be observing him, and they are often seen together for approximately half the year. I've heard rumors that he works as a teacher, while she is employed as a nurse. It's hard to imagine what it would be like in his classroom. Many others frequent this spot, each with their own distinct names. For instance, in the space beside mine for 2 weeks every month, there's Bobert with a handsome boat. Initially, his old, rusty boat beside him appeared to irk him, but later he realized it enhanced the beauty of his sleek vessel. Known as Robert Sandoval upon moving in, he unsuccessfully attempted to be addressed as Bob, instead being called Bobert, which persisted. He's a wealthy and eloquent individual, flaunting expensive timepieces. His boat carries a price tag of at least a couple $1 million. Always seeking financial growth, he seems more suited for New York City than here. He's not well received at the shack and spends most of his time in tourist areas. I remain unsure where he retreats when he departs the slip. As for his spouse, my reduction in alcohol consumption is attributed to Zasha. My first encounter with her left me questioning reality. She boasts long, glossy hair and a tall, slender physique. Her preferred attire consists of tiny white shorts and a blue and white striped top. On especially warm days, she dons a basic swimsuit as she wanders. Her visage? Her beauty is heavenly, reminiscent of an angel. You may recognize the term beast-like lips. Hers possess that quality, making them captivatingly beautiful. Despite her physical charm, there's an air of pureness surrounding her. Her vibrant blue eyes exhibit a constant astonishment at the world around her, giving the impression of an unspoiled girl from a small town. However, contrary to this image, she endures numerous hardships. On occasion, she dons long-sleeved shirts as camouflage for her difficult life. Sunglasses shield her eyes, perhaps to ward off unwanted glances. Gossips claim she submits to tasks she'd rather avoid, forced by others to facilitate business deals. Consequently, she's labeled in hushed whispers among many, except for Bobbert. He is far from timid. Instead of whispering derogatory names behind her back, he openly uses them when addressing her directly. I've observed her conversing with business associates at beachside bars. When with them, her expression fails to reveal any joy. Her innocent gaze becomes blank and unchanging. He watches her with a malicious smile, savoring her discomfort. It's hard for me to envision his behavior towards Zasha. She appears to be a long-term partner or foreign associate of his. I shouldn't sympathize with her situation. After all, she made her decisions and understands the rules like everyone else. If she chooses to leave, she certainly can. Frank would assist any woman in reaching the airport and ensuring her departure if that was her wish, as he had done for others. Whatever she aims to flee from must be severe. Nevertheless, I maintained a rule to keep out of other people's affairs. Why should a mechanic interfere with their business? That all changed at the Explorers' Day Party at the Reef, a tourist bar adorned with artificial palm trees and cheerful staff. Since Pogo had to close his shack early for a funeral, I decided to unwind with a few drinks at the Reef. I eventually found myself at the table where Bobbert was conversing with a group of tourists, with Zasha seated somewhat apart from them. He was discussing the merits of boat investments, which struck me as amusing. Throughout my lifelong career handling boats, I've come to realize a truth. They're merely sinkholes for money. His subsequent remark about boats was downright ridiculous, prompting an eye roll from me. At that moment, I noticed Zasha fixing her gaze on me. She tenderly smiled as she sipped her drink, yet kept her eyes trained on me. Given my alcohol consumption, I decided to mock Bobbert's flamboyant movements in a light-hearted manner. Hiding her amusement behind a menu, she followed suit, mimicking my actions too. For the subsequent hour, we engaged in a series of humorous exchanges, good-naturedly making fun of Bobbert. Despite not having exchanged a single word, this encounter was the most enjoyable interaction I've had with a woman since losing Lil. From that day forward, whenever our paths crossed, Zasha would meet my gaze and, with a mischievous gleam in her eyes, initiate the same playful banter. It seemed we forged a unique bond. This became the highlight of my days for several months. Merely catching sight of her brought me joy. I can't pinpoint exactly when it occurred, but I've been drinking less. The reduction happened gradually, and I found myself taking showers almost daily, around 3 to 4 times a week. This routine change prompted me to overhaul the water system on my boat. It involved shifting furniture from storage, as I had some new items, so I opted to swap out the old ones. Before long, my boat underwent a noticeable transformation. Whenever his boat was docked, I'd frequent the reef in hopes of spotting her. Admittedly, it was a bit absurd, but I had developed a small crush on a charming girl. I assumed she wouldn't reciprocate my feelings given her busy schedule and her association with Bobbert, who was wealthier than I could ever imagine. However, she motivated me to better myself. In October, an unexpected proposition came from Bobbert. We were at the reef one evening when he received a call from one of the waitresses and stepped away to take it. Upon his return, he appeared somewhat agitated. "Hey, Grease," he said, "how about you watch over Zasha for a while?" Zasha stiffened at his remarks, an unusual reaction I had never witnessed before. Bobbert picked up on this and smirked slightly. Before I could respond, he suggested, "Simply take her back to your boat for a couple of weeks. Maintain respect during this time. I have a business trip coming up." My surprise was momentary as he nodded with a grin. "Are you serious?" I inquired. He acknowledged my question with another nod and a grin. "She'll manage. Just don't overstep the boundaries." Uncertain, I nodded back. Zasha appeared disheartened. Her demeanor shifted and sorrow glimmered in her blue eyes as Bobbert departed with satisfaction. In silence, she followed me to the boat, her gaze downcast. As we ascended the gangplank at a slow pace, she seemed deep in thought. Upon reaching her new cabin and opening the door, she appeared hesitant. "I need to remove some boxes and arrange your bed," I explained. She observed as I organized her modest room, pulling out sheets and a light blanket. "It's far from ideal, but I've been making an effort to tidy up. Tomorrow, we'll clean more. The restroom is on your right, and I'm in my cabin on the left. If you need anything, just knock." Upon exiting her cabin, I looked behind me. The girl who appeared bewildered earlier had vanished, yet she had regained her puzzled expression, a worthwhile outcome from my endeavors. The following morning, I woke up early and began brewing coffee. She emerged slowly with a timid smile. Sitting down, she gratefully accepted the coffee while adding cream and sugar. "I don't have much food available. Have you ever visited the shack?" After a brief pause, her response resonated. It was my first time hearing her voice, and it was beautiful with a subtle Russian accent. "No, Robert never brought me there. Would you like to join me?" Her smile brightened me. "I'd be delighted to." The short stroll along the empty beach to the shack was enjoyable. I stole furtive glances at her. Even up close, she remained composed. I briefly took her hand to assist her over the seawall, and it was challenging to let go. For an instant, it seemed as though she held my hand a tad longer. Pogo's countenance grew somber upon my entrance with her. I guided her towards a secluded table in the deserted bar and ascended to order breakfast. His demeanor was grave. "Are you being reimbursed by Barbert?" I pondered. "What?" "Not at all. She's merely occupying my extra cabin for a fortnight while he's away." He scrutinized my visage before casting a glance at her. He appeared to reach a decision and let it pass. We partook in pancakes laden with fruit, overcoming initial bashfulness to discuss our preferred cuisines. The hours slipped by, and the bar filled up. Rowdy Howard, accompanied by Monster and X, arrived. Monster remained indifferent, while X conveyed disapproval with a glance. Pogo recognized this and engaged her in a brief dialogue. She appeared more at ease following their conversation. Rowdy Howard approached next, discussing a need for a repair on his boat's fuel line. He owned a residence on the island. Eventually, one can't reside perpetually on a boat, after all. Zasha entered the discussion, inquiring about paint colors and the boat's name. A crowd of individuals soon gathered around us. I ensured to present her as Zasha and emphasized that she should be referred to as such. X moved towards speaking with Zasha. "It seems you're staying with Grease for a couple of weeks." Zasha gave a broad smile in response. "Yes, for 2 weeks. He arranged a cabin for me last night." X cast a glance at me to check if I heard that. I nodded affirmatively. The suddenness of it was noticeable. I needed to rearrange my items outside due to the use of the cabin for storage. X scrutinized me. "What's the plan then?" I casually shrugged. "Frankly, I don't have one. Just showing her this part of the beach for now." In addition to some chores and boat maintenance, I desired to show her this location so that if she became restless while I was occupied, she would have a cozy spot to unwind. The primary reason, however, was to make her feel invited and appreciated. At that instant, he remained silent, but eventually I encountered him at a bar while procuring additional coffee. "Her own space?" he inquired. "Only for a couple of weeks. I'll retrieve my belongings if necessary. I should have the rental ready by then regardless." Let me clarify, I'm aware about Bobert and Zasha. When he loans her out, it isn't to any rundown cabin. Are you anxious about something happening? I shook my head. I don't know all the details, but I will treat her well. She's a remarkable individual who deserves respect. He offered her to me for 2 weeks unexpectedly last night. I thought she could benefit from a brief respite. X scrutinized me and eventually replied, "Just don't botch this up." Upon our return to the table, X interacted more directly with Zasha and discovered that she only had the clothing on her back for the following fortnight. Before I could voice my thoughts, X whisked her away, stating she would assist in retrieving some items from my boat by dinner. Spent the remainder of the day completing repairs. Upon returning to the boat, I found Zasha present with a cheerful demeanor. She was cleaning the kitchen space while donning blue shorts and a t-shirt, her hair tied in a ponytail, humming contentedly. Upon entering, she welcomed me warmly with a wide smile and shared details about her day with X. They had selected some souvenirs and wandered around, X handling all expenses, consoling Zasha not to fret. Yet, she seemed somewhat anxious. X also extended an invitation for dinner at the shack with him and Monster. I wasn't particularly concerned about X, but felt slightly uncomfortable with Monster. He was typically aloof yet amiable, but my apprehensions concerning him lingered. Regardless, we had to eat. That night, I put on a fresh shirt and we set off. The evening proved to be the most social in a while, and I refrained from drinking much as I didn't want to disappoint Zasha. We relished in music, conversed, and had a splendid evening. Monster proved to be a more engaging talker than anticipated, even dabbling in Russian speech. Yet, whenever his gaze fell upon me, a chill ran down my spine. The stroll along the shore back to the boat was idyllic. Zasha shot me a grateful glance as she retreated into her cabin. I vowed to make these weeks exceptional for her, and each day I strove to fulfill that promise. X spent time with Zasha, yet also lent assistance on the boat. One extended day, we even restored the entire deck, resulting in a stunning transformation. We prepared meals on the beach and dined at the shack. She swiftly became the beloved figure at the shack, radiating like a beacon of sunshine. Though she appeared youthful, she was nearly 30 and had attended university. However, she tended to keep personal aspects of her life private. For the duration of our time together, I avoided witnessing that melancholic expression or vacant stare. 3 days before Bobert's return, X presented me with a pair of tickets. The governor's ball is scheduled for 2 days from now, and we have some additional tickets available. Perhaps you and Zasha could join us. You looked at the tickets skeptically. They are hard to come by around here. However, she assured me that Monster has a suit that should fit you, and there are dresses for Zasha. This effectively silenced my doubts. I nodded, pondering her sudden generosity. For a fleeting moment, it seemed as if a tear slid down her cheek, but she quickly composed herself. "I once lost something wonderful, and the memory still lingers." She walked away briskly, leaving me to ponder her actions. The next day, Zasha was thrilled about the invitation and spent hours selecting a dress with X. When she returned to the boat, she had a beautiful light blue gown. "And scissors," she said jokingly. "You must look your best." I grumbled a bit, but soon my hair was cropped short and my beard trimmed. I hardly recognized myself in the mirror. The shabby appearance had vanished, replaced by a woman I hadn't seen in years. Zasha appeared magnificent. Her minimal makeup accentuated her natural beauty, and the blue dress brought out the captivating hue of her eyes. She resembled an ethereal being, enchanting and breathtaking. The ball was a dream for Zasha. The colonial mansion, with its vibrant decor and plush upholstery, seemed to have sprung from a fairy tale. She clung tightly to my arm as we entered. Photographs were snapped and names called, much like in the movies. I spotted Monster and X dancing. I was slightly rusty, but Zasha danced with elegance. Onlookers cast curious glances my way. I was a regular face at the docks, but quite unrecognizable without my beard and long hair. For years, Bobert had shielded Zasha from such events. However, we found ourselves seated among important guests who attempted to engage Zasha in conversation. Yet, she continued to hold onto my arm. We danced until the final melody ceased, then headed back to our boat as if we were drifting. We paused for one last dance on the sandy beach under the radiant moon, accompanied by the soothing sound of the sea. That night, a soft tap was heard at my cabin door. Zasha entered silently. In the light filtering through the porthole, she appeared captivating. I whispered, "Zasha, there's no need for you to do this for me." She chuckled lightly. "Hush, I'm doing it for myself." A sense of warmth enveloped us. What started as a tender moment escalated into an intense connection. We spent the night entwined, drifting off to sleep peacefully in each other's arms. However, the following morning she was absent. Her new attire was neatly stowed away on a shelf, as if she would return. The evening began with a melancholic atmosphere. I saw her with Bobert at the reef. As I passed by, she flinched, and my heart sank. Bobert observed and offered a smug smile. Teaching her a lesson? That's admirable. Ire needed to comprehend her standing in his eyes left me seething. The urge to challenge him surged, yet at that instant, Zasha shot me a knowing wink. Her strategy was clear. If Bobert sensed our growing bond, he'd have kept me distant. Under the pretense of making me uneasy, he unintentionally brought us closer. Over the subsequent 2 months, nothing altered, but my heart yearned for him each time I saw him with Zasha, fueling my resentment towards him. I couldn't fathom her choice to be near him. Each encounter was excruciating, and I contemplated avoiding spots where they might cross paths. However, if I vanished entirely, it felt like betraying Zasha. A persistent apprehension nagged me. I knew it would cause discomfort, yet I couldn't stop dwelling on it. I wasn't sure how much more of this I could endure before the situation became unbearable. Then, suddenly, everything shifted unexpectedly. One twilight, following a tiring workday, I listened to an unusual sound trouble starting Bobert's boat engine, evidently handled by someone unskilled. It echoed as if they hadn't turned on the fuel. Despite his flaws, Bobert was proficient with boats, and so was Zasha. Seizing a fish knife, I exited my vessel towards theirs. If they successfully booted the engine, it could lead to severe complications. I leaped from the pier and clambered aboard. Should anyone be attempting to seize the boat, my compensation for assisting Bobert would be Zasha's liberty. I stealthily traversed the deck and descended the stairs. If someone was trying to take the boat, my actions would ensure Zasha's freedom. I heard hushed voices in the engine room as I entered the main cabin. Then I paused. Bobert was not in a state to negotiate again. He was bound near the closet door. I focused my attention meticulously, proceeding cautiously on the slick floor. My stomach nodded with concern for Zasha and the unsettling scene before me. In a menacing, deep voice from an adjoining cabin, I heard a sound that caught my attention. Grasping my knife firmly, I traced the noise, uncovering a large man with dark hair, tattoos, and a grip on Zasha, her attire disheveled and her eyes showing defeat. Speaking in what I believed to be Russian, his tone was harsh and ominous. Without hesitation, I struck him behind the ear with my club, which sent him crashing to the floor. I promptly moved him away from Zasha. Bruises marred Zasha's face, her eyes nearly closed, and her lips were injured. On laying him on the floor, she opened her eyes and clung to me tightly. In that instant, her tough demeanor dissolved, and she held on to me tightly. Whispering softly, she said, "There are 3 more. We need to flee." Impulsively, we took off without gathering anything. My boat was too obvious, the initial spot they'd search, so we made our way across the beach towards the shack. Halfway there, I glanced back and saw figures pursuing us on the sandy shoreline. Guided her across the seawall, and we stumbled into a shack, causing everyone to turn towards us. The mood shifted as Zasha looked wounded and I appeared disheveled. The crowd reacted with surprise, except for Monster, who merely glanced at us before returning to his drink. I steered Zasha toward the bar, seeking a hiding spot with Pogo. "They're close behind us. They've just taken down Bobert," Pogo mentioned, looking past me. "And they're armed." He seemed surprisingly composed. I swiftly turned towards the entrance where 3 men with short hair and handguns had pursued us, moving faster than anticipated. I stood in front of Zasha as they approached, smirking. Their leader focused on us while the others scanned the bar. The crowd watched them intently, except for Monster, who was engrossed in his own thoughts with his back turned to them. "We're only here for the one who caused trouble earlier," the man said with a thick accent, pointing towards Frank Rodema while aiming his gun at him. Unarmed and with hands raised, Frank drew attention but not unwelcome. As the grinning man approached closer, I remained motionless. Frank addressed him, his calm tone carrying a clear severity. "No need to fret, fellows. I'm off duty for the following 8 hours. A faint, icy smile emerged on X's face. She whispered, "Fiend." Sights of despair were familiar to me, yet this was unique. The man's contemplative expression transformed into a chilling calmness. With surprising swiftness, he disarmed the approaching individual with precise skill. The other 2 didn't even realize what had transpired before they were dealt with. Maintaining an eerie composure, Monster continued his actions. When the last one hit the ground, I noticed a moment of bitter pride on X's face. Monster showed no emotion as he inspected and placed down the weapon. He uttered a single word in a deep tone. Quietness descended in the shack, briefly interrupted by Howard's booming voice. He chided, "If I'd known you'd take so long, Sergeant, I would have made a pot of coffee. I almost dozed off waiting for you." There was an undercurrent of command in his words that I hadn't noticed before. Monster, in his customary friendly tone, which now seemed more feigned, apologized. "My apologies, Colonel. I had to wait until things calmed down." It made sense. He was maintaining order. X checked on Zasha, reporting, "She's better than expected, but she needs a proper checkup." Turning her gaze towards me, she added, "No injuries." Pogo retrieved a t-shirt with a logo from under the bar and offered it to me for Zasha. Once she donned it, she looked at me earnestly. "My baby," she said sincerely. Zasha referred to my Kisa and promptly disclosed that Bober had relocated her daughter to a small island, overseen by a housekeeper and security guard, deterring Zasha from leaving him. Prioritizing her child's safety, she remained with him. Gravely, Frank addressed us, "Even though I'm off duty, I must visit that island." In response, we agreed, "We'll accompany you." Subsequently, I launched my boat for the first time in 18 months. It functioned smoothly. Using his knowledge, Frank identified Bobert's owned islands on the maps and located the correct one. During our voyage, Zasha narrated her ordeal. Her late husband was a St. Petersburg police officer who had encounters with local mafia, resulting in his death. Subsequently, she became part of a human trafficking arrangement. At that time, she was 7 months pregnant, an uncommon target, but her husband's actions had provoked them. Consequently, she was sold to Bobert. Despite all obstacles, Bobert consented to let her raise his child, recognizing the power it gave him over her. This marked a challenging period for her. She got fortnightly visits with her baby, but had to comply with Bobert's requirements for these meetings. The hostilities stemmed from Bobert breaking a promise, and those same individuals who delivered her to him were implicated. Navigating such circumstances can be perilous. At the residence, no resistance was encountered. The housekeeper and security personnel handed over the 2-year-old girl without hesitation upon seeing Frank and Monster. She was charming, possessing her mother's radiant blue eyes and golden hair. Zoja cradled Kisa and wept for the first time openly. After enduring so much agony, Zoja's tears flowed unrestrained. I remained stationary until X signaled me to draw nearer, and I moved towards them. Zoja looked at me with teary eyes and found solace in my presence. Upon our return to the shack at dawn, I was cradling Kisa, with Zoja clinging tightly to me. Upon reaching the house, we noticed a shift. The bodies were absent, and Howard and Pogo had unexpectedly returned from a fishing trip. It was later discovered that anything associated with Bobert had been removed. We weren't certain of how much the housekeeper and guard knew about the events, but they appeared oblivious. Frank instructed them to depart the islands within 2 days, which they acknowledged. Zosia remained close by my side. Given that Bobert had arranged a marriage certificate, she now owned the boat and the small island, both of which she sold promptly. We got married shortly after, and I proposed a prenuptial agreement due to her newfound wealth, but she laughed it off. She joked that I was too old to seek another woman and would just have to stay with her forever, as if no one could match up. A modest dwelling on the island is ours, hosting a fishing charter with 3 vessels. Kisa is swiftly growing, while Lily, her younger sister, recently started walking. Zosia bestowed her name upon her. Despite enduring numerous trials and tribulations, Zosia's spirit remained unyielding. She relentlessly battled for her daughter, prepared to confront any obstacle in her path. For her daughter, she was resolute, save for a moment of uncertainty when I consented to look after Kisa for 2 weeks, as Zosia had learned to rely on me in her unique manner. Despite my imperfections, I evolved into the person she needed me to be. People here assign names but seldom use them anymore. Instead, they call her by what she represents. They refer to her as Angel. Title: The Shack, a Tale of Friendship. Live alongside wolves, and you'll learn how to howl. Russian proverb. We crave a narrative, 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 narrative. 3 little girls with golden hair demanded my attention from their beds. I reclined in the rocking chair, feigning an accent. Shall we seek moose and squirrel? I asked. Nuuo. This prompted Kisa and Lily to erupt in hearty laughter. Amber, our youngest, joined in, primarily due to her sister's amusement, as she was unfamiliar with the show and thus couldn't comprehend my peculiar tone. Kisa shares her name with me, symbolically, as Kisa is Russian for kitten, a nickname my first spouse used for me. I gave her that name to remind myself of him. Lily's name is reminiscent of Thomas's first wife, a woman I respect, although we never met. Amber's name was proposed by Spooky in a gentle whisper. We believe it holds a special meaning, but she hasn't shared it with us yet. The girls seem to cherish the wolf story, though it can be lengthy and sometimes somber. Perhaps they appreciate it because I do. As I cast a glance at the dresser, the frames of Peter and Lillian seemed to give me a knowing wink. Long ago lived an enchanting dog boasting gleaming golden fur, a plush tail, endearing ears, and flawless teeth. Known for her cheerfulness, she aimed to bring joy to those around her, despite her occasional vanity. One day, she encountered a courageous and honest police dog. Entranced by his integrity, she wished to spread happiness with him. They resolved to share a blissful life together, dreaming of a family of puppies in the future. Now, allow me to recount a cheerful co-ed who crossed paths with and wed a detective in St. Petersburg's police force. Their story started when I stumbled on some slippery winter ice while entering a coffee shop. I held a fondness for winter, the chill, and the delight of treading icy streets, savoring warm coffee. As I prepared to enter, the ice slipped away beneath me, causing me to stumble. Someone grabbed my arm and helped me up, but I toppled again, clutching at a pair of sturdy shoulders. His warmth sparked a smile. He had piercing gray eyes and light brown hair, and his amiable demeanor was invigorating. Beware, we can't afford for beautiful women to fall on the ice. It could tarnish the city's image. His flattering words caused my cheeks to blush. I seemed to lose my footing. His smile amused me, and I clung to him a little more firmly to maintain my balance. He continued to steady me with his grin. I might as well come up with something witty, but I think I'll just stay here and allow you to hold on to me for as long as you desire. And that's exactly what I did. At that moment, I decided to cling to Peter forever. It may seem foolish, but I sensed we would share laughter, form a family, and age gracefully together. There was no escape for him. I was resolute and knew my course of action. The girl at the coffee shop told me his name and where he worked in the police department. The following day, I brought lunch to his station and a calendar, suggesting we choose a wedding date. He chuckled. I don't even know your name yet. How do you know we're compatible? We haven't even had our first date. Since you told me I could stay as long as I desired, and I've picked our entire lives together. I don't get to make this decision, though. You get one chance. We'll be together for 2 months. If you want to end it after that, we can. But if not, it's forever. Why would I agree to this? Not because you said I'm attractive and attractive women always get what they want. This attractive woman only wants one thing. I've been warned about attractive females. They can create trouble. So I'll wear a mask for the rest of my life. You're the only one who will ever see my real self. He scrutinized me carefully. You're serious, and this is the first man I've pursued in my life. He consented. I can't articulate how I knew it would work out, but it did, and it was just as magical as a fairy tale. 2 months passed, then 3, then 4. In 6 months we were married. We dreamed of a large family and planned to start one once I completed school. The issue at our wedding didn't stem from us, but rather involved Peter and his powerful cousin Dmitri. In the church entrance, usually composed, Peter lost his temper and knocked out Dmitri. When I inquired about it, he explained that his cousin was not welcome in our household. A disgruntled spirit, hating joy, sent malevolent beings to chastise them for their honesty and happiness. They attempted to recruit a police dog to join them, but the dog was too noble for such company. Instead, the creatures targeted the 2 family dogs. Despite their bravery, they were overwhelmed, and the beautiful dog was taken away. Peter and I had been married for 10 months. I had completed my language studies and was working part-time as an interpreter at the local telecommunications office. 7 months pregnant and happier than I ever thought possible. Peter's primary concern was his family. Despite his parents' demise in a car crash, he had an affluent and esteemed uncle named Gregor Ivanovich. Yet, his treatment towards me was peculiar and disdainful. I presumed his perspective was influenced by his era and sexist views on women. However, my opinion changed later. To him, females were merely commodities, valued solely for their ability to deliver. Gregor oversaw a vast criminal enterprise, dealing in goods that people coveted due to their greed. Peter sought no involvement in this, and his uncle vowed to keep him detached. As a wedding gift, Peter requested from his uncle that he would never endanger me. However, promises from such individuals can be misleading. In the kitchen, I heard commotion at the front door. Struggling due to my pregnancy, I ventured out. Even if I desired to, it's already past that point, Peter said. The evidence has been taken, but you'll have to retrieve it, won't you? That's not how things function, and you're aware of that. You'll need one of your judges to assist with this. As I rounded the corner, powerful hands seized me. Peter, upon seeing me, he was there, with 6 men in the room. Dmitri chuckled softly. Perhaps he needs a reminder of what a real man is like. Maybe that will encourage him to focus more on his family. Peter glared at him, then turned his fury towards Gregor. You swore you wouldn't let her get harmed. Gregor smiled back. I did. I could feel Dmitri relaxing his hold, but Gregor's expression turned grave. However, treating women with the respect they deserve isn't harmful. I tried to wriggle free as Dmitri held me firmly. Peter pushed one man aside. When he moved, I noticed him drawing something out. His first strike missed the man he shoved, and he turned towards me, ready to defend me. I stood as motionless as possible, but he failed. As he discharged another round, a new noise echoed, causing his head to swivel sideways. Peter's bullet missed me, hitting Dmitri instead. Though he couldn't completely shield me, at least Dmitri no longer held me captive. A scream escaped me, an agonizing sound that would linger in my memory for years. The monstrous beings subjected her to harsh treatment, leading her deep into the forest and compelling her to strike a bargain with a wicked entity, one they knew was even more malevolent. Despite her numerous hardships, she possessed a small dog, a dog so enchanting that not even the wicked creature could help but be taken aback. Nevertheless, it kept the dog from her and neglected it, fully aware of her sense of entrapment and her belief that no faithful dog would ever desert its master. The vile creature, enraged by her beauty, made her live in filth and remain dirty. She felt profound sorrow but recognized that the creature flourished on her melancholy, so she concealed her sadness from it. Robert Sandoval became my new master, though we were referred to as husband and wife. In contrast to the men who preceded him, he treated me with contempt. They viewed me as an object. He reveled in humiliating me. His cruelty wasn't solely physical. He delighted in making me perform for others to demonstrate his dominance over me. My existence was harsh and confined within a filthy, sweltering shipping container, stricken with discomfort and apprehension. During labor, I was all alone, engulfed by pain and darkness. Yet, when my baby cried out, a newfound resilience surged through me. I knew that for the sake of my child, I had to endure. A voice of my great-grandfather echoed in my mind, reminding me that immense strength can prevail over immense suffering. Robert exploited my affection for Kisa as a means to manipulate me. As long as I fought to safeguard my baby, I realized I could withstand any adversity he thrust upon me. No mother should feel ashamed for doing everything within her power for her child. I could persevere. Every day, a devoted dog, brimming with affection for her puppy, surveyed the woods, quietly wishing for someone to free her. Yet, all she discerned were additional fiends lurking in the concealed corners, and in the night, the bright yellow eyes of wolves stared back at her. She trembled at the sight of wolves more than other creatures, having learned they lacked honor and compassion. Their ghostly howls sent chills down her spine. At first, I failed to detect the solitary men who preferred seclusion away from bustling tourist areas. However, gradually, I observed them amidst the throngs. They appeared rugged and frosty, similar to my great-grandfather, who endured harsh experiences during warfare. Unlike him, these men exhibited no empathy or warmth. The tall man with white hair and the shorter bald man regarded Robert and me with disinterest, paying no heed to our predicament. I perceived that Robert felt apprehension towards them, maybe more so than I did. The most terrifying were the half-demon man and his associate. She looked at me with contempt, and his single piercing eye hinted at a deep comprehension. At times, I harbored unsettling suspicions about them. Every day, she scanned the woods, witnessing her hope dwindle and spirits sag, concealing her melancholy from the creature in proximity. However, one day she observed a pair of brilliant yellow eyes following her movements. Over the days that ensued, these eyes approached her, growing brighter until she identified it as a sickly, shaggy wolf, the least daunting of species. He appeared forlorn and isolated. He edged nearer to her each day until he settled opposite her, out of sight. Despite her apprehension towards wolves, he seemed gentle and somewhat foolish. He frolicked around and played, inciting a grin from her. Despite sharing company with just this thin, comical wolf and the recollection of her puppy, she felt less isolated. He was a scrawny man, filthy, with disheveled hair and an unkempt beard. It was evident that he was struggling in life, a predicament she had witnessed many times prior. He gazed at her as Purter did, as if she was the world's most beautiful entity. Initially, she felt hesitant, but soon recognized he saw her differently than others. He perceived her as a genuine individual. In an unexpected move, he acknowledged her dislike for Robert and began making light-hearted jabs at him, causing her amusement. Laughter has the power to alter our emotions, making difficulties appear less daunting. His humor seemed to alleviate some of the burden Robert had on her heart, making her feel more carefree. Unbeknownst to Robert, Greece was gradually transforming his life. It took time for her to notice, but he was becoming healthier and drinking less daily. She was astounded. She had never witnessed someone triumph over such challenges previously. Gradually, her feelings toward him evolved subtly without her conscious awareness. And when Robert finally released his grip on her, Greece treated her with a kindness she had never experienced before. Thus, she allowed herself to trust him. For the first instance since Peter, she was with someone she genuinely admired. He presented her to his exclusive circle. They accepted her in an unusual fashion. Leaving Thomas to rejoin Robert was one of the most challenging choices she had ever made. She acknowledged it was difficult for Thomas, but she prioritized Kisa's security. She needed to stay resilient. She attempted to express her emotions to him, yet his pain, a reflection of hers, made her ponder if there might be an opportunity to flee with him and Kisa. One day, the ogres arrived for the container filled with dark magic. The ogres were brutal, and they chose to plunder more of the slime creature's riches as well. A major fight ensued, and the ogres overpowered the slime monster. Enraged that the dog was still joyful, they intended to harm her and her puppy. At that precise moment, a thin, tattered wolf darted into the hut, revealing himself as a valiant prince of wolves. She encountered the most formidable ogre and vanquished it with remarkable bravery. Subsequently, she summoned her pack to dispel the remaining ogres and safeguard her puppy. Fate can be erratic. Out of nowhere, Dmitri and his men appeared. I remained uncertain about his intentions regarding Robert. Trapped within a closet while they handled him, after witnessing what unfolded, I felt relieved. Despite my disputes with Robert, their conduct left me bewildered. Dmitri had warned me I could meet the same fate, yet suddenly Thomas intervened. Moments earlier, I was ridden with despair, and the next instant, Dmitri vanished, leaving me to flee with Thomas. Dmitri's followers pursued us, but they unwittingly fell into a trap. Upon being embraced by Thomas and his dog, I felt secure. I belonged with him and his companions. After he transported us to his boat, I observed him emptying all the alcohol into the sea, realizing he was doing it for our sake. Huddled amidst wolves, she clung tightly to Thomas and her puppy, filled with trepidation towards the other wolves. Wolves perceived her discomfort and guided her towards the glistening pond under the moonlight, smiling at her. One of them asked, "Gaze into the water, fair one. What do you see?" The girl stared into the crystal-clear water and recognized her reflection. The grime and dirt had vanished. Her radiant golden fur was still visible, but her ears stood erect. Her teeth seemed robust. Her eyes gleamed with vitality. She raised her face to the heavens and emitted a long, resounding howl. She understood the truth. She was a wolf like them, and she had been all along. What she believed were pitiful howls were actually calls of camaraderie. She felt completely at ease. She would remain with them forever and start a new life alongside her valiant wolf prince. I began to rise from my seat. Kisa gave me a stern look. "Halt! What about the Troll King? He's cruel and he can't be evaded. What about the magical chest?" Lily and Amber bore an identical anxious expression, just like their elder sister. I reluctantly resumed my seat, unable to suppress my smile. "Are you absolutely certain?" "The hour is advancing, and I'm becoming weary." I arched my back and widened my mouth, acknowledging the sensation. "Child, recount the entire tale," I grinned. "We always did this." "Very well, if you insist." A pack of wolves swelled as more joined them, enticed by their genuine and powerful essence, living harmoniously in their woodland haven. However, while the wolves reveled in their tranquility, a troll king did not. He dispatched additional beasts to seize the golden wolf and her cubs, and to retrieve the enchanted chest. Yet, the wolves were prudent and vigilant, detecting the infiltrators approaching their domain. They safeguarded themselves and found the vexing artifact. For a long period, all was blissful. Thomas and I shared an understanding that surpassed my expectations. We had both experienced the sorrow of losing our initial loves, and we vowed to pay tribute to those memories by keeping their photographs in our home. Each time I departed, I brushed Lillian's portrait and vowed silently to care for Thomas and our children. Our family continued expanding, some voluntarily like Spooky, others reluctantly, such as Evelyn. Danny, Monster's daughter, became my most trusted companion. I endeavored to push Gregor aside, but it pained me that Peter would never receive the justice he deserved. However, I came to realize that certain events were simply not meant to occur. One still evening, long past sunset, Thomas and I sat with Pogo, Howard, and Chief. Pogo drummed his fingers on the table. "There might be a problem," Wendy warned. "I've never met Wendy before, but I knew she was an expensive trafficker," Pogo added. "Someone is seeking transportation in 3 weeks. 6 men will be protecting a substantial cargo that didn't get inspected." "Is it arriving here?" Howard asked, raising an eyebrow. "That's the peculiar part. It's departing from here, bound for Sudan." "That doesn't add up," Howard said. "Precisely. That's why Wendy contacted us." The woman suspects were using fake Russian identities. Russian? Chief directed his gaze towards me. Pogo nodded in agreement. That's what she said, he continued. I don't like it. It seems the situation is somehow linked to either a ship or an aircraft. Thomas tightened his hold on my hand. Perhaps it has already arrived here, he suggested, hinting at Bobbert possibly concealing something on one of the smaller islands. Howard appeared thoughtful. It could be military equipment or other items of high value, he speculated, giving me a significant look. Such items would fetch a substantial sum from certain buyers, but even with family discounts, I doubt they'd cover Wendy's expenses. The chief furrowed his brow. If a shipment is traced back to us, it could lead to serious complications. This might even implicate a commercial flight. A look of distress crossed Howard's face. Quickly, you and Angel, compile an inventory of every potential hiding spot where Bobbert might have stashed something, likely something quite substantial. I shook my head. My association with Robert was only for about 2 weeks each month. He had the freedom to stow items whenever I was absent. The sole place I resided was at the house on Kamai Key. Who did you give the key to? Howard inquired. Wing Ho Development. I suppose they acquired a number of small islands for investment. It seems they've made no significant changes to it. I worry it might be a front for something else. I'll ask Evie to find a means to repurchase that island via one of her other ventures as a precaution. We gained close to $7 million from the sale of the island, but for Evie, it was comparable to a commoner purchasing a candy bar. Despite the difficulty, she'd do it for Howard. Chief took out his notebook and displayed a chart representing the key. There wasn't much room for concealing a container in this area, only the house and a couple of minor beaches. I instructed my team to stay vigilant for visitors. 6 individuals should not go unnoticed. It was nearly 3 weeks when they eventually showed up. I became aware it was grave when I arrived at the shack and found Chief unusually anxious. He rarely displays such stress. Howard and Pogo appeared troubled. They showed up this morning. Spooky has been tracking them all day. They're looking for you, Angel. They have some old photographs, ones featuring you and Bobbert. A surge of fear washed over me. Thomas is out on a charter and the girls are at school. Pogo offered a comforting smile. Your concern for Thomas and the girls first shows why we value you, Angel. Monster went to retrieve the girls from school, and Chief contacted Greece to dispatch a police boat to monitor them. They seem unaware of our presence. Anyone truly suspicious wouldn't be so haphazard, Howard mused, looking perplexed. Pogo shrugged dismissively. They're likely just Bobbert's old acquaintances trying to tie up loose ends. They might doubt Bobbert is dead and suspect he's embroiled in something else. This unsettles Howard, and they still lack information regarding the shipment. Pogo proposed asking them pointed questions to learn their intentions and perhaps discover Angel's whereabouts to gauge their reactions. He also reminded Howard about ensuring one of them survives. Howard's concerns resonated with me. Monster was known for shielding children. Chief declined involvement, suggesting some matters are best left unspoken. That night, only Thomas and I were home, maintaining normalcy while 6 individuals refused entry. Pogo and Monster were vigilant outside. I trusted Monster to manage the situation. Thomas and I heard nothing, but around midnight, Pogo and Howard returned. They conveyed their plans to address the 6 people that same evening. Without a doubt, it appears connected to something Bobbert had concealed. The individual we approached was unaware of its nature, only knowing they needed to retrieve it from the house. Clearly, he had no clue about it, and if he did, he wouldn't have kept it from us. Pogo avoided eye contact. Their task was to determine if Angel held any information and handle the matter. A shiver ran through me. I was aware of their interrogation methods, how they handled Bobbert. I suspected Monster wouldn't be gentle with the one who might still be alive, and I felt no remorse for that fact. Howard stated, "It seems to be the house with the key. We'll need to investigate it in the morning. I'll inform Evie." Upon completing our inspection of the first floor rooms, Pogo looked at me. "What lies beneath in the basement?" I queried. I indicated the stairs leading upwards. Kisa and I had ventured there. I had never descended into the basement, and after everything that transpired, I wanted nothing more than to depart. I had no interest in Robert's possessions. "Is that you, Pogo?" echoed Spooky's voice from below. She must have slipped down unnoticed while everyone was preoccupied on the ground floor. "I found a sizable cavity in one of the walls," she revealed. Pogo and Thomas swiftly retrieved sledgehammers from their boat and descended. The wolves converged around the mysterious box. They sensed the malevolent magic inside was too potent to ignore the malicious Troll King. Despite their numeric advantage, they still needed aid to confront him. They assembled on a forest hill and commenced howling, summoning other wolves. A chill ran down my spine. Pogo's tone sounded grave. I had never seen him so serious or distressed before. "Could it be what I suspect?" inquired Chief, peering through the wall opening. "They appear to have lost their minds," he mused. Howard sat silent for a while before repeating Pogo's words. "Why couldn't it have been something less ominous?" Thomas stared at the peculiar cylindrical artifact. "I believe I have an idea, but what specifically are we dealing with?" Pogo appeared puzzled. "It's a modified MAD, a Russian variant presumably stolen en route. It's a medium atomic destruction device, and its potential impact could be as devastating as the bomb detonated over Hiroshima. The object might discharge hazardous substances. Avoid contact. Though it may not be active, these items require careful handling to prevent a catastrophe." Howard acknowledged. "I'll use the satellite phone from the boat. We need Maria and Donna. Grease, call Radio X. Ask them to dispatch Monster and have her retrieve the 2-foot lockers in the supply room labeled water pump parts. The contents are quite dangerous, and I would feel safer having them here." The upcoming hours were hectic. Black night wolves, robust mountain wolves, and even the ominous red wolves from the Trolls' realm converged. They convened under the moonlight and decided unanimously that the troll posed a substantial threat to everyone. It required nearly 2 days for Donna to arrive, accompanied by a sizable group. The combined use of our 3 boats facilitated their transportation to the island. Upon arrival, Donna was escorted by 40 heavily armed men who transitioned into uniforms during transit. Pogo awaited us upon docking. "Instruct your men to maintain distance from the house," she warned him sternly. "If your information is accurate, we must fortify it immediately. There's a potent presence within it alongside Howard, Donna. He's prepared and not in good spirits. This is too personal, too close to the children. While they might manage him eventually, it wouldn't be prudent and could jeopardize numerous lives. We can't afford that." "I understand," Donna responded, signaling one of her men. "Secure the island, but keep everyone away from the house unless I command so." Her team promptly moved to encircle the vicinity, while 4 remained with her. "Consider an alternate strategy. Pause. There might come a time when we lose our grip. Who would step into your shoes then?" Donna furrowed her brow. "What's your motive behind this? It seems there's a major issue surfacing that requires careful handling to avoid hasty decisions. This predicament is intricate, but not reckless. We'll manage it. I merely wish for everyone to be present here first. Maria is arriving, and she's escorting some additional guests." "Who are they?" Pogo shrugged nonchalantly. "Their identities are unclear, yet I hope one of them can assist us in tackling the danger at hand." After discussing with Pogo and Howard, I opted to remain while Thomas escorted the Sea Angel away for adjustments. The thought of being separated from him, even briefly, made me uneasy. Donna gazed out at the ocean, her face grave. "I had to trust Wendy to make it here. It was costly, but necessary. It's not your expense, Donna, and she delivers satisfactorily. If you need to swiftly transport a group of soldiers along with their gear halfway across the globe silently, that's her expertise." "She won't utter a word to me," Pogo remarked, grinning. "I spent my youth mastering the art of annoying you, and I must say, this is a victory for me," he quipped, forming a check mark in the air with his finger. "You're still a handful." However, she flashed her brother a tiny smile before addressing me. "Angel, if you decide to expand your family, consider having more daughters. Little brothers can indeed be quite testing." As Maria Hawthorne, the FBI's deputy director, arrived with her companions, a tall, well-groomed man exuding authority and an elderly man in plain attire looking weary, Donna offered Maria a nod before moving towards the taller man with a friendly expression. "Yuri, I knew you'd be drawn into this," she said, to which he shook his head and chuckled softly. "Donica, it was obvious you'd be present when you saw Russian uniforms on American soldiers. How do you manage to be here whenever there's turmoil?" "It's our job, Yuri," she replied, glancing back at Maria. "Good decision." Maria politely smiled. "It's good to see you both acquainted. Let's discuss matters later. I believe we need clarity on our current situation." Maria introduced everyone, and we waited in the living room for Alexei to descend the stairs, looking rather pale. I aided with translation due to Howard's insistence on clear communication. He assures us it's safe now. The device wasn't triggered, but all preparations were made, and the trap was set. It's potent enough to devastate the building and disperse the core. Maria sighed. "How many of these devices exist, Yuri?" "We are uncertain. It was a unique program with restricted access, and records were erased in the 90s. This is an artifact from the Cold War. From what I understand, Alexei is the sole individual connected, serving merely as a technician. He was not privy to extensive details. Unfortunately, it seems I must reinstate him, and he'll be compensated appropriately." Donna cast a glance towards the basement stairs. "It's crucial that we get involved in this, Yuri. Previously, it was your concern when it was in Russia. However, now it concerns us all. Minimally, Maria must be kept informed. We can do better than this. President Putin is vigilant about our land, but I spoke with him before I departed. He fears that concealing information could erode the trust we still have, particularly if anything goes unnoticed. I've been granted permission to disclose everything we know, which, regrettably, isn't much more than what we've previously discussed." He scowled. "We may need to negotiate with Gregor Ivanovich to acquire the information necessary to prevent further issues. I can hardly believe it. After all that has transpired, my Peter would not be avenged." A deep anger surged within me. Indeed, my voice didn't resemble mine. He glanced over at me, truly seeing me for the first time. "Perhaps he believed I was simply there for translation," I corrected. "Gregor Ivanovich will face retribution for this, as well as the death of my husband. Young woman, you insolently spoke to me as if I were a child. Attempt such behavior again at your own risk. You possess the capability to force him to speak, should you wish. Modern times have made such acts obsolete." I scoffed, but the sound was hollow. "Don't presume to dictate the actions of others. Peter deserves justice. If you do not make that happen, I will. I am no longer helpless or alone." Howard leaned towards me, his expression inscrutable. "We are now part of her family. We will find him. For his actions, there will be repercussions." Howard comprehended revenge. It had been the driving force behind his life for over 30 years. He had pursued everyone linked to the misfortune of his wife and child in various locations. In some places, that's all that keeps you alive. Pogo stretched and grinned, picking up on a potential opening. Donna frowned. "Trust me, Yuri, they are not bluffing. They possess more resources than you imagine and show no hesitation. They might even relish the prospect. Regardless of the situation, it seems appropriate for Mr. Ivanovich to speak up. Mr. Ivanovich has been embroiled in several suspicious activities." Donna started clarifying my identity and recounting how I arrived on these islands, seeking additional information. Yuri glanced intermittently between Donna and me. "What nationality are you?" "When I wed Thomas, I was informed that I obtained dual citizenship here and in Russia. You remain a Russian citizen. We will press charges against you, but only if you're willing to testify about the incident with your husband." He paused, deep in thought. "Yes, Detective Peter Ivanovich, I will." "Peter, your birth name was Volk, correct?" A subtle twitch appeared at the corner of his mouth, but he swiftly concealed it. Despite my feelings of sadness towards Peter, our shared moments of laughter made it difficult for Yuri to ignore this fact. Donna observed the twitch and arched an eyebrow. I smiled slightly. Yes, Peter. Turning to Donna. In English, Peter and I were named after a wolf Volk, so Peter and I were Peter and the wolf. Yuri gave a quiet chuckle, while Donna smiled subtly. It might have been more amusing in Russian. We need to clarify some points. I propose taking the device from here and returning it to the appropriate parties. Maria agreed. Returning the device is acceptable. If we didn't, someone would likely inquire about its origin, possibly a congressman seeking attention. Once word leaks that things are intensifying, it could create diplomatic complications. Howard intervened. Greece is readying the Sea Angel with additional fuel tanks to extend its range. He can link up with one of your ships or submarines at a location of your choice, as long as it doesn't lead back toward Fiji. We aim to prevent any issues there. Yuri seemed to ponder carefully. Unlike many others, he understood the real threat, not deceived by the facade when Monster had led Alexei downstairs. This would be unfortunate and unnecessary. A submarine will be prepared within a couple of days. The delivery location in Sudan has raised shared concerns between our countries. As for the origin and target of these events, we are currently unaware unless Gregor Ivanovich provides any information. Wolves roamed throughout the night, stealthily entering the forest, their number increasing in various forms. The ogre army faced no real chance against them as silent wolves emerged from the shadows and overpowered them until none remained. Only the Troll King was left, sitting on his throne alone, when the Golden Wolf, once a dog, appeared before him. She declared his fate, handing him over to the red wolves of his own land to live in eternal darkness. In the ensuing weeks, unusual and disturbing incidents occurred. Fires broke out in Moldova's warehouses, while police were busy all across Europe. Agents from the FBI and FSB collaborated secretively, persistently pursuing leads with no respite. In Sudan, a training facility was dismantled by two distinct groups of men, each in unique uniforms, Chinese and Taiwanese. For hours, Pogo and Howard chuckled over this sight, observing the linguistic confusions among Donna, Yuri, or perhaps they were not miscommunications at all. Meanwhile, Zasha Knight journeyed to Chile, Russia, once known as Zasha Sandoval and before that Zasha Ivanovich. Accompanied by significant figures from the Russian Federal Security Service FSB, she was escorted to a countryside residence. Upon arrival, we found the grand mansion's door ajar, leading us through fresh snow. A solitary light illuminated a room at the end of the corridor. Gregor Ivanovich, seated rigidly at his desk, watched us with his hands folded, while Spooky and stern officers shared their gaze between him and Spooky, hinting at divided attentions. Yuri and Donna aimed to secure Gregor's capture, as it was possible that influential figures within the government could be implicated. Numerous mysteries remained unsolved. A vacant chair confronted him from across the desk. I took a seat and drew back the fur-trimmed hood of my red mantle. Gregor's eyes widened with shock, and I observed Spooky's knowing smirk. Uncle Gregor, Zasha, hush, I silenced him. The woman who wedded Pyotr would never have spoken thus. You harmed my Pyotr, your own nephew. You denied us happiness. You believed me insignificant. You reveled in complicating my life while feigning justice. I paused and regarded the fragile man before me. We seldom communicated, so I never disclosed this to you. My great-grandfather hailed from Siberia. Though I may not appear it, he was truly of that lineage. I was his favorite. He shared tales with me about tigers, bears, and wolves. Looking at my gloves, I recognized that life in a warm environment had made me complacent, unaccustomed to the harsh winter that once didn't bother me. He informed me that hunting wolves was the most difficult. There are regulations for wolf hunting. For each visible wolf, there are numerous others lurking in the shadows. Therefore, it's not just the wolf you see that should concern you. Wolves are tenacious predators. While you pursue them, they will relentlessly pursue you in return. As I spoke, my anger subsided and a feeling of tranquility took over. You sent me into a world filled with wolves, but I learned to thrive. I stood up abruptly, feeling that this was all over, done with Gregor. I desired to leave him behind. I yearned for the sunshine, to simply be Angel, with Thomas and my daughters. I waved goodbye to my friends. Yuri was by my side, as hardened and unyielding as winter itself. Even he was taken aback by how deeply Gregor had deceived us. I had more to express, but now I understood that it didn't matter. You hold no significance to me now. Various questions regarding your actions and grave matters await you. I momentarily halted, allowing my thoughts to process. I anticipate these inquiries will consume much of your time. As Spooky and I departed, I overheard the distant howls of wolves encircling the Troll King. Chapter: The Shack, Necessary Evil Inn. Favors carry significant weight in my life, regardless of their complexity or simplicity. They often come with a steep price. This was why Trace and I attended the symphony in a secluded box seat. He exuded elegance in his tuxedo, standing tall with his gray hair contrasting starkly against his nearly black skin. The sight of him left others unsurprised by our presence together. Although we differ, our association has become less unusual over time. Some might ponder why he associates with someone as unremarkable as me. Trace heads the technical aspects of Cumulus, making him an employee under my command since I'm the director. Primarily, Cumulus encompasses two clandestine operations. Green is the conventional military surveillance program manned by proficient operatives. Red represents our division for those feeling adrift or in despair. We operate covertly with individuals unaware of our identities or their roles. For nearly 20 years, my association with Trace has remained separate from my own endeavors. Our bond remains steady until either of us departs, although we avoid traditional obligations. We are aware of this permanence, but shun conventional ties. I prioritize my work above all, yet my feelings for him persist, even as he continues to wear his wedding ring, a symbol that love endures beyond the passage of time. His grief over Josephine's death still lingers. They were traveling home following her pregnancy celebration when, under the influence, Trace crossed into oncoming traffic. She perished instantly while he emerged unscathed. In the past, penalties for driving under the influence were less stringent, resulting in him receiving a suspended license and enduring a solitary existence. Subsequently, he was overwhelmed by remorse. However, his troubles multiplied over time. Trace was among the pioneers of a future program that eventually evolved into Cumulus Red. I, an inexperienced young Army counterintelligence agent, was tasked to aid him. Pretending expertise was not uncommon for me, despite my lack of it. The fundamental guideline when dealing with someone like him is to maintain emotional detachment, a lesson drilled into us so often that it might as well be inscribed on a wall. I can't say for certain if it would have altered the outcome, but perhaps it could have. When I encountered him, he was in a state of disarray. He had been homeless for over a year despite holding a degree from Caltech in electronic engineering. His appearance was poor, he appeared deeply unhappy, and it was difficult to be near him. His mental state was deteriorating. He frequently conversed with himself and responded as if being addressed. His impending demise was evident, leaving us no choice but to let him disappear peacefully. His reminiscences about his past might have been dismissed as hallucinations of a man on the brink of madness. However, one night I found him asleep, conversing with someone named Josephine, begging her not to abandon him again. He was trapped in his distressing memories. For months, I maintained my distance, trying to shield myself emotionally. Yet, it proved challenging. Witnessing a noble man succumb to addiction's grasp was far more difficult than anticipated. We spent considerable time together, and his suffering was palpable. The situation grew more intricate because he wasn't acting out of deceit or seeking retaliation, as I had been taught. Instead, he yearned for the agony to cease. Josephine's voice echoed in my thoughts, urging him to end the self-harm. This quandary haunted me daily. His voice grew increasingly hard to dismiss. To attend a crucial gathering, he forewent instead to inspect a borrowed computer. Despite his disoriented state, he remained our most suitable candidate. We needed to return the computer unopened, which infuriated me. I hastily proceeded to the dilapidated factory where he resided, descending the corroded steps. Upon arrival, I discovered him unconscious, likely preserved by a pizza box that shielded his face from immersion in a concoction of food and drink. I had reached my breaking point. Acting instinctively, I rifled through his pockets and discarded all illicit substances. I confined him to the bathroom and kept him there for several months. This decision came close to costing him everything. Although aware it would be challenging, I believed he'd be better off confronting reality instead of persisting in his current condition. It wasn't my prerogative to make that call, but I did so regardless. I frequently shoulder responsibilities others can't manage. He encountered numerous critical issues such as confusion, fever, and tremors. He bellowed and yelled, seeming engaged in a fierce inner struggle. In any ordinary setting, someone might have sought assistance. In a more spiritual environment, they may have summoned an exorcist. Here, people glanced at the cracked pavement, drew their coats tighter, and quickened their pace. He would remain in a soiled corner until I arrived with buckets of chilly water to clean him, often requiring a doctor who operated illegally due to past blunders. This doctor never inquired about his condition as he recognized early on that curiosity could lead to trouble. I shifted from being called Donna to a term he muttered spitefully as he hid in the shadows, tears streaming down his face. Then, genuine hatred took hold. With each passing day, it grew stronger until it overpowered his thirst. When his hate was so intense that he refused to ask for a drink, I knew something significant had shifted. For a duration, he responded to me with terse words. Later, he ceased speaking and only looked at me, mentally concocting retribution for an opportune moment. After some additional weeks, I carried whiskey and a rucksack to see him. I positioned the whiskey before him and maneuvered behind him, revealing a compact, unregistered weapon. Although it wasn't powerful, it was sufficient for my purposes. Proceed. Drink, I stated. He cast his gaze at the container on the irregular floor tiles. Why? I'm through. If you wish to conclude this, do so. Understand it's your final chance. I aimed the weapon at him. Make it extended. I can either leave you here or... He gradually faced me, the weapon almost touching his eye. Just another life wasted. Yes, it happens frequently. No one will be concerned about who you were. It'll be swift. He turned to the bottle, then slowly reached for it. A sense of melancholy overcame me, but I had made my decision. He unfastened the cap slowly, moving cautiously without uttering a word. He then tilted the bottle over the drain, watching as the golden liquid vanished. "You're quite resentful, aren't you?" I commented. "Well, maybe I am. What if I slip up? Then it's your problem." He retorted, understanding my implied threat. His anger was palpable. I pulled out some clothes and soap from my bag, then unlocked the restraint I had put on him, observing the marks it left behind. These would heal, but the memories would linger. "Clean yourself up and get dressed," I instructed. "We need to find food and a place for you to stay. There's an old hotel nearby that even has heating." He nodded, his mounting irritation visible in his eyes. This frustration was constant, simmering like a distant storm. I noticed him occasionally watching me, as if biding his time. I sensed he was poised to act. It felt like a countdown until I would need to take control. His feelings of sorrow and remorse over Josephine's demise remained perpetual. I vowed to take prompt action. For 2 additional years, we collaborated intensely, scarcely with anyone else. The very essence of our task necessitated it constant and hectic. This implied he grasped our objectives proficiently. Nevertheless, we seldom communicated, only addressing what required attention. He absorbed much knowledge, and eventually, we entrusted him with the van, where he operated effectively. He maintained order, making it challenging to differentiate helpers from professionals. He proposed establishing a modest electronics repair shop in a challenging neighborhood. There were whispers that it was associated with criminal activities, which benefited us. Generally, people avoided places they believed might be connected to illicit activity. His anger never subsided. He always maintained a professional demeanor, almost too composed. However, the message was unmistakable. If you showed signs of vulnerability, there would be retribution. Pushed by the need to excel further, it underscored the significance of remaining dedicated. Subsequently, upon promotion to a superior role, I handed over my duties to my successor. The burden on my shoulders felt immense and was instantly alleviated. I could then unwind without fretting about being deceived by a trusted colleague. Lowering one's defenses can lead to severe consequences, such as health problems, precisely what transpired in this case. As it turned out, I developed a serious medical issue that necessitated careful examination. Thankfully, early detection increased my likelihood of recovery. For me, the decision was straightforward. I chose to undergo surgery. Since I didn't intend to start a family, removing the unnecessary seemed logical. Approximately a year after finding a new physician, I had the operation and returned home. Regrettably, I failed to reach out for help from my mom or Pogo, who would have supported me in my time of need. I can't explain why I didn't ask for assistance. I informed the hospital personnel about having a caretaker, but secretly departed in a taxi to avoid an additional day at the hospital. I exceeded the prescribed dose of painkillers and fell asleep. Upon waking, Trace was seated by my bed, his expression difficult to decipher. I scarcely recalled organizing my possessions before the operation. My mind was too disoriented when I returned home. Typically, I would have been confident about handling him, given his size. However, in my current state, I wasn't so sure. Although he was larger than me, I had been trained to fight, and he hadn't. The odds of victory weren't definitive, but I stood a chance under normal circumstances. However, not now. "Good morning, Trace. You don't look well." "I feel the same." He scrutinized me intently. "You placed your trust in someone who lacks expertise." I winced as I attempted to sit up. "He simply requires more time to develop. His time is up. He refuses to listen and learn. He will make errors." He dismissed an entire team from a task, acting as if orchestrating a performance. His actions suggest he doesn't trust us to handle matters independently. "I'll discuss this with a superior. We don't require additional help if they merely hinder progress." He nodded thoughtfully, suggesting understanding. "What we need is a true professional, someone capable and experienced, not just obeying orders." After what felt like an extended period of silence, you broke it. "I was taken aback to see you here. I assumed you might be too. It took me some time to locate your position and the opportune moment to visit. I initially suspected you were present for another purpose. Admittedly, I pondered over it. Watching you take a brief rest, I contemplated my choices. The fireplace poker. I needed to provide a convincing reason for anyone to suspect trouble. Yes, indeed. That seems logical. However, you were simply carrying out your duties, addressing the issue at hand." I couldn't meet his gaze. The medication was causing my thoughts to blur. Somehow, he seemed to sense something more profound. Concern flashed on his face, prompting me to decline response, averting my gaze. I was incapacitated by the painkillers, leaving me bewildered. "Yet, you'd still be displeased if I took a drink instantly." Anger pulsed in my voice. "Why? What did you assume Josephine would desire? Would she prefer my prolonged suffering or quick relief?" He sank back into his seat, appearing exhausted. Alas, he seemed affected. Did it succeed as intended? We found ourselves in an unusual, tranquil silence. He aided me to the bathroom and back to bed before departing. I contemplated reporting the situation, feeling my home exposed, but aware it wasn't harmful. He had his opportunity and chose not to act. Now he comprehended more than I intended to reveal. He often checked on me during recovery, shaking his head in dismay each time he left. We conversed slightly, discussing trivial matters mostly. Generally, we spent most of our time in silence, observing the flickering gas fire as we pondered individually. I shared with the director about the agent that replaced me. He struggled adapting to our type of assignments, making it simple for him to accept a standard job. A new agent filled his position soon afterward. A few days later, I discovered an anonymous "thank you" card in my mailbox. Trace gradually became a close confidant. He unraveled our identities or came very close to doing so. Over time, he consistently demonstrated trustworthiness and eventually became an integral part of my life. He continued to visit without any explicit discussion. It transpired naturally. Our friendship deepened over the course of a couple more years. This wasn't predestined. His prior romantic relationship had concluded, and I never viewed it in that light. However, we had an unspoken understanding, and such connections were more significant than mere liking in our lives. Sharing moments together and having someone who accepted me without judgment was far more valuable. He never disparaged me, instead frequently assisted me in choosing wiser paths. He prompted me to honor the vow I made to intervene if he ever resorted to drinking again. I pledged to do so, as I take on responsibilities that others typically eschew. Consequently, about 2 decades later, we found ourselves seated in a luxurious box, Trace's fingers gently touching my arm. We were anticipating Maria Hawthorne, the FBI's deputy director. The sight of her arrival brought a smile to my face. Her security detail stationed themselves near the door to the box, opposite two of my Dobermans. More of my dogs were dispersed around the building. I wanted Maria to be aware of them. We opted for similar black gowns. Hers was floor-length due to her height. Michael, her escort, led her in and placed her next to me. Later, he seated himself on the other side of her. The arrangement felt unconventional, but essential. He whispered something to her, which she then directed towards me. "Your presence is making my team somewhat apprehensive." Perplexed by the large number of people present, Donna expressed her discomfort as it was uncommon and unexpected, making her team uneasy unless they're the ones causing the surprise. She suggested a meeting in your office since you have worked together before. When asked about the reason for the conversation, she clarified that it needed to be kept confidential due to its sensitive nature. 4 agents have gone missing, and she couldn't deal with it officially. She felt compelled to find accountability and inform others. The question arose as to why you were being told this information when there are presumably others easier to handle. However, Donna stated that your skills and compassion made you the right person for this situation. You might recall Morton Gallagher, who had met an unfortunate end a few years ago. His death was linked to individuals with questionable pasts. Although Mr. Gallagher's death was deemed accidental, they also investigated his case. There's no definitive evidence, but the surveillance cameras at the site where he was discovered had been malfunctioning for approximately an hour around his demise. Perhaps one of your associates. Let me assure you, encountering her would not be a desirable outcome. If Spooky became aware that the FBI was seeking her, she'd likely invade Hawthorne's office and residence without delay. With limited options to impede her, even if I wished to, there was little I could do. Maria furrowed her brow, wrestling with curiosity and better judgment. I'm not instructing you to hand them over. Then what exactly are you requesting? The organization he belonged to operates covertly. They engage in forbidden technologies, such as dangerous chemicals and nuclear systems. I see. She hesitated, uncertain about the next course of action. Discomfort was not her usual state, and I observed this. Instead of dismantling it piecemeal, you could halt their operations temporarily in this location. This was our objective prior to the Tommy Amber predicament. Thus, we aimed to collaborate with local law enforcement and shut them down. However, my team was apprehended during these negotiations. Given the involvement of local authorities and a directive from the DOJ to steer clear of complications, this location is in the tri-border region. If one pays attention, it refers to Argentina. The tri-border area encompasses Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay, a complex region at the best of times. Allegations of misconduct are frequent, while local officials assert everything is overstated. The current state: a modest 2-acre site, housing 3 structures, approximately 25 guards, and 12 staff members. Additionally, there are around 6 local women present. I felt a twinge of empathy for those with limited opportunities in life, like Amber, like myself. We both shared this sentiment. If you wish to effect change, it necessitates witnesses, hence the women must remain safe. She acknowledged with a nod, visibly relieved to preserve part of her convictions. Michael handed her a small envelope for me to receive. I delivered it to Trace without giving it a second glance. My jacket and bag were alike, both filled with items I hoped wouldn't be required. All our knowledge about the group and location is stored on the data stick. It also clarifies why I'm being instructed to take a step back. Is someone from higher up involved? We don't suspect so this time. It's ill-advised, but not colluding. The directive to step back originated from the State Department. They're attempting to establish a cooperation agreement for law enforcement data. She disagreed, displeased with a sluggish bureaucracy. Another ineffective agreement, they don't trust us there. We've accumulated some of that mistrust over time. She furrowed her brow slightly at this remark. FBI agents tend to view themselves as heroes and resent being considered villains. I strive for self-honesty and view my actions as managing responsibilities, even when they're challenging. Maria comprehended this approach and accepted reality as it stands. In South America, there's often skepticism towards the S. Past experiences have made them wary of our aid. Even when we aim to help, they perceive us as overly powerful and intrusive. Collaborating on sensitive matters, such as preventing hazardous substances from being traded nearby, is frequently seen as succumbing to us influence. Maria acknowledged this fact. Regardless, action is necessary. If we don't address this issue, it could jeopardize every FBI agent, employee, NGO worker, and embassy staff here, including you. I considered debating my team's capabilities, but she was already aware of that. That was why she was present. It made sense. In the end, I did what needed to be done. It took 6 weeks to put everything in order. The electronic file Maria provided me with was comprehensive and clearly identified the government official we required to convince. Argentina had strained ties with US, and at least one authority figure utilized this tension as an alibi for non-cooperation while simultaneously reaping illicit funds. Swiftly, Spooky uncovered him and discovered his weak points. Maria entered my office, keeping the door ajar, attired in a gentle gray jacket and skirt. Some of my staff believe she adopts such business attire to taunt me. I realize its significance holds deeper meaning, though, even if she hasn't verbalized it. When she began wearing these suits, it symbolized her transition from a novice and resourceful individual into a dependable professional capable of handling challenging tasks, making independent decisions instead of merely responding. The suit didn't bother me, but then Candy, my secretary, appeared behind her, standing against the doorway frame with crossed arms and a playful expression, contrasting sharply with her typical serious demeanor. Candy seemed determined, as sharp as Spooky, and I hoped her intensity wouldn't rub off on me. Maria set a file on my desk and created space for Candy to view it. Comisario Mayor Matias Acosta. He's the one who disclosed details about the FBI agents and their locations. As we gathered information through the devices I installed, it appears that initially he wasn't aware of their peril, but once they were in danger, he attempted to conceal it to shield his own role. Have you spoken with him? I inquired. Not so far. He has robust security, imperfect though it may be. I didn't want to trigger any warnings. It seems more prudent to conduct everything concurrently. She subtly smiled and looked back at Candy. He's scheduled for visits in the tri-border area in 3 weeks. He typically frequents bars after work, often interacting with friendly patrons. He enjoys socializing. A smile bloomed on Candy's face, revealing her resolve. She had a personal investment in this matter and was evidently ready to assist. Normally, I may have hesitated due to her involvement. However, Candy is always reliable. Previously, she proved to be one of our top part-time team members, excelling in interpersonal relationships. Her ability to separate work emotions from personal ones was remarkable. She even offered advice to Spooky on capturing attention and navigating social scenarios. Despite this, Spooky still grappled with people connections, much like Candy excelled. Do you both have a strategy? I inquired, hoping to omit unnecessary specifics. All the details are in the folder, Candy replied, standing tall. The folder appeared meticulously assembled. I'll contact you if additional information is required. Spooky exited and Candy shut the door. I recognized the need for increased vigilance over these two. A glance at the folder suggested they could make a potent duo, but who else might be utilized? I acknowledged the Master Sergeant with a nod, signaling my consent. They were all sergeants, predominantly staff sergeants. In another setting, they'd command their own squads or detachments. Staff sergeants suited me well. They had the right mix of experience and vigor. However, this master sergeant was different. Leading an infantry team of 40 wasn't usually a step back for him, especially not in my case. He tapped his microphone. Hellhound, Hellhound, this is Mockingbird. A composed woman's voice responded, Mockingbird, this is Hellhound. She settled into her role, pausing briefly. Mockingbird activated. I subtly smiled at the female presence in our mission, a significant departure from past operations. The sergeant smirked with confidence. Mockingbird, Mockingbird, please report your status. My Air Force tech sergeant, part of my technical team, watched as a line of lights turned red on her handheld gadget as the E-6B Prowler overhead began its tasks. She subtly affirmed me with a silent thumbs up and a sharp nod. I envisioned her military hair neatly secured if she were in her Air Force uniform. Another female figure. Beware, gentlemen. I glanced at my Dobermans, stationed along the trail. They were fixated on the sergeant instead of me. Typically, they would be my priority, but presently, they only watched him. Their ears pricked up, poised and waiting for action. All chatter about sports or games ceased. The significance of daily routines receded in favor of impending excitement. They aren't like Pogo and his unit. My canines are infantry. If one requires a specific task with minimal hassle, the special forces are optimal. SEALs, Delta, and others suit that purpose. But when one aims to make an impression, nothing surpasses the infantry. They thrive in their roles and yield results. It's what they do. At times, the finesse displayed by special forces may appear excessive to some, leaving room for misunderstanding. My perspective, however, is unique. Air Force strikes can sometimes give off a technical air, resembling a natural catastrophe. Such occurrences can be rationalized by people. However, at certain instances, one must leave a tangible impression, and the infantry excels in this area. Their formal attire may adorn numerous badges and tabs symbolizing their training, but these are not the reasons for their selection. Instead, they have been hand-picked from elite light infantry units. This role has grown increasingly significant for infantry branch leaders. The task of finding the best has become a prestigious endeavor for them. They are swift decision-makers and veterans. By nature, they are agile and fiercely determined, embodying the essence of light infantry. They can act quickly and adapt to challenging situations. Although they may lack the refinement of special forces, it is precisely this rough edge that I admire in them. I encountered difficulties in assigning these individuals, growing weary of bureaucratic hurdles, so I engaged in persuasive discussions with influential figures to facilitate the process. At times, a gentle push is what's needed for people to do the right thing, and this instance served as a valuable lesson for some. Real integrity involves doing the morally correct action, even when unobserved. After all, it's the right decision, and sometimes someone is indeed observing. Generally, that observer is me. These individuals officially work for the Army Testing and Evaluation Command, testing cutting-edge combat technologies. In their unique roles, they are part of a protective detail, trained for specialized tasks. Often, they perform this work on my behalf. Due to their likenesses and vibrant personalities, people affectionately dubbed them Donna's Dobermans. The primary reason my Dobermans are present is that when something seems amiss, prompt action is essential. The sergeant and his team verified their radios. Above, if Mockingbird was performing optimally, there was a fleeting pause in the background static where their radios functioned. It wasn't significant as they primarily utilized hand signals. Their attire deviated from standard uniforms. Instead, they donned Russian airborne outfits and caps. All equipment was either Russian or European. They were armed with AK-74 rifles, SV-98 sniper rifles, and PKP machine guns, all of which had undergone meticulous enhancement at a secure facility. Even the ammunition was custom-made. Typically, their counterparts in Russia would wear American uniforms and equipment. This is an ongoing jest within our field. Such humor arises from hardship. The sergeant scrutinized them one last time and offered his customary warning, remain vigilant and stay observant. He glanced at me, a self-assured grin on his face. On your command, ma'am. I hesitated for a moment, sensing the electrifying ambience. He gestured, and in unison, 2 rows of men stealthily advanced along the path, quickly merging into the distance. Sniper teams had positioned themselves to monitor the target, on guard for any suspicious activity. I observed them blending with the foliage alongside my Air Force sergeant, then turned to retrace my steps towards the gravel road, awaiting my transportation. Though regulations required 4 of them to escort me for safety, I preferred they press forward. Time was not a factor here. As I resumed my journey to the road, I heard solitary gunshots, undoubtedly from the snipers. Next came a cacophony of rifle fire and machine gun blasts as the primary force stormed the compound. I detected a few subdued thumps, presuming explosive charges for breaching walls. Remarkably, they were adhering to the strategy, a tactic they often employed. Such disciplined infantry tend to favor self-orchestrated entrances, ensuring greater safety. After they've set off, I don't fret about them, for it's past the point of concern. They're resilient enough to manage most situations. A black SUV pulled up beside the road, halting behind a few glitzy tour buses. 2 men seemed to be fixing a tire on one of the buses. Trace emerged from the SUV and approached me to open the passenger door. We listened to some distant sounds and checked our watches. Then he handed me a chilled soda from the cooler. "We should hold out for a while longer," he said. I acknowledged with a nod and took a sip, finding it refreshingly cold. "Is anything happening?" I inquired. He smiled subtly and shook his head. "No, everything unfolded as anticipated." He dismissed his security upon meeting her. In the back seat, a man sat silently with an enigmatic Candy beside him. There was no doubt she could handle whatever lay ahead. During our short journey to the compound, Candy, Spooky, and Trace engaged in cheerful conversation. Comisario Mayor Macias Acosta possessed proficient English skills, and I aimed to ensure he comprehended our intended message. However, knowing something and demonstrating it are distinct matters. Thus, we brought Russian gear along to avert confusion and impart a lesson. Upon arrival, 2 of my Dobermans unlocked the principal gate. Possibly, they had been informed of our approach by the guards. The incident lasted barely 15 minutes, with most time spent tidying up. Certain soldiers were transferring bodies to the courtyard and arranging them. Others gathered articles for scrutiny, including computers and documents. Some items were set aside for future examination, while others were discarded. A group of anxious individuals hid in a main compound corner, attempting to safeguard children despite their own trepidation. The sergeant advanced, still looking around vigilantly. "There were no casualties on our side. All objectives have been neutralized. The individual you wished alive is in custody." He put up some resistance, so it's uncertain how long he'll persist. He scowled but didn't offer an apology. His focus was on his team, as expected. "The count of civilians is 8 women and 4 children. They are all unharmed. We heard faint thumps coming from somewhere beneath us," he smiled. "Explosives in quarter block C4 are set to a timer, pushing them into the sewage system." I couldn't help but smirk at that. The team was meticulous. We were making our stance clear. "How much more time do you require?" 10 additional minutes. "We're disposing of the vehicles, except for 1 truck." He gestured towards the group of women, causing them to flinch. "I'm uncertain if they can operate it." "They'll manage," I responded, looking toward the SUV. I outlined my strategy and then let him resume his work. After a short while, I indicated to Trace, who had Spooky and Candy, bring our captive out of the SUV and guide him over. I nodded to Candy, and she removed his hood. "Sir, Acosta, espero que tu viaje fue entretenido. Miro alrededor con sorpresa y sus ojos se ampliaron al comprender donde estábamos. Sus ojos se desplazaban de las llamas que salían de los edificios a los soldados que vertían gasolina sobre lo que quedaba del escenario. Detuvo su mirada, centrándose en Spooky con una mezcla de miedo y curiosidad. Esperan escuchar, Macias, no quiero tener que repetirme entiendo usted. Desvié su mirada de ella y logró mirarme. Abrió la boca para hablar, pero lo interrumpí. Estos seres acabaran con las vidas de cuatro agents estadounidenses y2 jugast un papel en ello. Empiezo a sacudarse la cabeza y objeto. Por favor, déjame terminar. Esto no está para discusiones. Necesito que esté claro. Mare hasha arriba y natsai atrás sacudiendo la cabeza triste antes de acercarse al SUV, mirando intencionadamente lejado. Entendía lo que si necesitaba hacer y lo aceptaba, pero no quería ser testigo. No le blameo a él, pero tenía que verlo por mi cuenta. I indicated for him to observe the sergeant and one of his companions upholding a man on his knees beside the mass of corpses. The man looked feeble and unwell. I pondered if he would endure long enough to witness this through. Regardless, it wasn't crucial. The individual you struck a bargain with is Aldrich Cunningham, an arms trafficker. He carries a value of approximately 45 million euros. The money he provided for the intel leading to those agents' deaths and the assistance given afterward seems insignificant compared to what he may lose. He has ties across Europe and would likely evade punishment for his actions. Even if he ever faced trial, he could afford top-tier legal representation. I approached the kneeling man while Acosta trailed behind me, guided by Spooky and Candy. As I withdrew my vintage Beretta and targeted it precisely, I glanced at Acosta. Nothing else mattered to me. The Beretta's sound was piercing in the silence, distinct amidst the chaos. A hush fell, followed by one woman's sobs, prompting the others to console her quickly. I approached Acosta as the sergeant and his companion removed the man. Acosta looked at me with round eyes, clearly supported only by Spooky and Candy. Commissario Mayor Matias Acosta, I said sternly, you will act righteously from now on. You won't accept bribes like this. I'm not asking you to betray your country. Instead, you will remain a dedicated Argentinian police officer. Corruption is not something you want for us. Do you comprehend? He gave a small nod, speechless. It was fine. He continued to look between me and Spooky. As flames from a discarded road flare spread over the mass of bodies, I signaled for Spooky to join me with the women. A few remained resolute and formed a barrier between us and them. They demonstrated courage and were unfortunate recipients of life's harshness. I passed the keys to the final truck and handcuffs to Spooky. Pass them the keys, I said. Inform them to wait an hour following our departure, then drive into town. They can remove the handcuffs from Acosta there, but they should not mistreat him. Let them know this isn't about them. Ensure Mr. Acosta understands that I would be extremely displeased if anything were to happen to these women. Candy guided Acosta towards them while I walked back to the SUV where Trace and my tech sergeant were packing their belongings in the trunk. Upon receiving the signal from the snipers that everything was secure, we departed. As we drove away, I looked back at the compound and saw the last soldier, the sergeant, exit through one of the damaged walls. During our brief journey to the buses, I had to inquire about Spooky's actions regarding our captive since he seemed preoccupied with her most of the time. I showed him some family photos, she explained. She presented me with a small tablet containing images last seen when I was here previously. There were pictures of Acosta's wife, son, daughters, and even one of him, all peacefully sleeping in their beds, each accompanied by a small item. Candy offered a gentle smile. They're adorable children. Indeed, they were sweet. Even Spooky seemed to soften upon seeing them. An intriguing thought, Spooky and children. Strange things do occur, I suppose. Trace seemed more at ease with the photos than anticipated, likely due to his belief that beneath Spooky's tough exterior lies a boundary. They share a bond forged by shared hardships. Spooky addresses him respectfully, always using Mr. Jackson, but their unique dynamic is only comprehensible to them. I've never inquired about it. As our two tourist buses arrived at a tranquil airfield, it was evident that Matias Acosta had not caused any disturbances. I hadn't expected him to. Another performance was scheduled. During a pause, Trace retrieved two beverages from one of the tables, one water and one champagne. He gently passed me the champagne. I typically abstain from drinking around him, but occasionally he performs this act. It's a custom, symbolizing our agreement and the link we share. It serves as a reminder of his dependence on me for balance and my reliance on him to retain my humane aspect amidst the challenges we face. The burden of the beretta I carried always seemed more pronounced when he performed this gesture. Maria would learn about the mission's end through media reports and regular intelligence updates. We wouldn't take the risk of another meeting due to this. It wasn't difficult for her. An accommodating Argentinian police chief granted unrestricted access to a secluded area that bore the scars of extensive damage, as evidence linked the men within to the unsolved case of 4 FBI agents. Meixas Acosta is renowned for his strong family focus these days, often bringing his family along on work assignments. He evidently dislikes being apart from them. His sincerity is gaining recognition. A tale circulates that when recently presented with a bribe, he demonstrated his unyielding integrity by declaring he would not succumb to such temptations, instead opting for potential hardships over accepting a solitary cent. Integrity matters greatly. The official account on the facility implies it encountered troubles from a competing group within the same profession. Of course, everyone has their unique interpretations of what truly transpired. Somebody is prepared to intervene. They are willing to take any measures required. Listen up. If you found this video engaging and wish to keep abreast of our fresh content, remember to click that subscribe button and activate notifications. You wouldn't want to miss the upcoming content.